husband's counterpart in cunning. Double standards. An admirer of Odysseus as a man of action, Athena, goddess of war, decided to intervene on his behalf with her father Zeus. Calypso was compelled to let Odysseus go, and he built a ship to escape the nymphs' island and return home. When Poseidon discovered this, he stirred up a storm to thwart. I can't see there. Hold on. When Poseidon discovered this, he stirred up a storm to thwart the hero. Shipwrecked and cast ashore alone on the coast of Phaeacia. I apologize, not a native English speaker. Perhaps Corfu. Odysseus was discovered by Nausicaa, the daughter of Alcinous. The country's king. Odysseus was discovered by Nausicaa, the daughter of Alcinous, the country's king. Encouraged by Nausicaa, who brought him clothes, Odysseus made his way into the king's palace to seek help and was welcomed as a guest. While he was entertained in the hall of King Alcinous, the hero told the king the impressive story of his wanderings to date. Sweet Stopper. Odysseus began with the tale of his sojourn in the land of the Lotus Eaters. He had gone there after his men sacked Ismarus, their first stop after Troy. The Lotus Eaters lived in permanent trance. The lotus fruits they ate not only provided nutritional sustenance, they also induced a haze of calmness and contentment. So, back in the day, shrooms, I guess. Only Odysseus was sufficiently quick-thinking and self-disciplined to recognize the danger with his shipmates when his shipmates fell upon the narcotic fruits. Seizing the men by force, he frog-marched them back to their ship and ordered his crew to set sail. Cyclops and Sea God. Hungry and tired after further days at sea, Odysseus and his men reached another coast where they dropped anchor. Going ashore to forage, the men stumbled on a cave and were thrilled to find. Turn the page. Great quantities of food, wine, and other supplies stored within it. They began to help themselves only to be interrupted when the owner of the cave returned. This was the terrifying Cyclops, a one-eyed giant named Polyphemus, who drove before him a flock of giant sheep. Polyphemus was the son of the sea god Poseidon. Wounding Polyphemus, when Cyclops discovered Odysseus and his crew inside his cave, he was furious. He rolled a huge boulder across the entrance, sealing it shut and trapping the men inside. He then snatched 2 of the men and devoured them. Desperate to escape, a terrified Odysseus and his remaining crew came up with a plan. Waiting until the giant shepherd was drunk and drowsy, advised him to sail to Hades to seek directions from a blind prophet named Tiresias. Odysseus and his crew set off from Aea, and he blocked his men's ears to save them from the seductive songs of the sirens as they sailed past their isle. They then steered a course through a fiendishly narrow strait, Messina. On one side was a whirlpool, Charybdis. Eager to suck ships down. On the other was a crag, on which the six-headed maiden monster Scylla sat, ready to seize and swallow passing sailors. When Odysseus finally met Tiresias, the seer explained Poseidon's grudge. Against Tiresias' advice, Odysseus and his crew stopped to rest in Thrinacia, which is Helios. Odysseus told his men not to eat the sacred cattle, but they disobeyed, and Zeus sent a mighty storm in punishment. Odysseus was a sole survivor, but he swam to the island of Calypso, but was captured by the nymph. After leaving Calypso, Odysseus was caught in a storm sent by Poseidon. He was washed up on Scheria, and rescued by the goddess Athena. A hero's home